So let's talk about how to calculate average cost per unit in a production setting. Okay, so suppose a company produces X units of product and the total cost to produce those units is given by the function C of X. So now if we want to find the average cost per unit, that is how much it costs to produce one unit on average. So to do that, what we have to do is you have to divide the total cost by the number of units produced. So if we take the total cost as C of X and the number of units produced as X, and usually we use the notation C bar to represent the average cost, then you can take C bar is equals to C of X divided by X. So here, this is really important thing that you have to note. So this function is defined for all the X values greater than 0 because you cannot divide a function by a 0. So you can't have average cost if no units are produced. So again, C bar is equals to C of X divided by X. So this tells us the average cost per unit when X units are produced. So now let's look at an example to find the average cost. So let's look at real world example for an average cost function. So Sunny's green house produce roses. So their total cost for producing X 100 roses is given by Cx. And the Cx function, the total cost is 50 multiplied by X plus 500. And again, note that here X represents the number of roses and the roses are given in hundreds. Okay, so now the first part of this question is you have to find the average cost function. That means we have to find out the average cost per 100 roses. So by the definition, we know that C bar X is equals to Cx divided by X, the total cost divided by number of units. So here there's a mistake. So this should be a capital C. So the total cost is given by the function 50x plus 500. You have to divide it by x. So this expression gives us the average cost to produce 1 unit of x or one set of 100 roses. Next, let's talk about the domain of this function, the domain. So that is what we have to find in second part. Okay, so this function is a quotient. So this is a quotient, and we know that we cannot divide anything by 0. So this x over here cannot be a 0. And also in this context, x represents the number of hundreds of roses produced. So it must be positive. Like the number of roses should be positive, as well as this number cannot be a 0. So that means the domain of this function, that means the numbers that we can take for this function should be all positive numbers. So the inputs or the domain for this function is all the x values should be greater than 0. That is any positive number. Okay, so now let's go to the third part. So here you have to sketch this function. So if you sketch this function using your graphing calculator, you'll get a graph like this. If you graph your average cost, so it will be something like this. And as the number of roses increases, you see that the average cost decreases.